September 2021, just about 15 days ago, Supreme Court said that women can join military colleges and be eligible for permanent commission. The decision comes less than a month after the top court, again, allowed the women to sit for examinations to India's National Defense Academy, the NDA. This was big, big, big news because finally women are making that step and closer to being able to get full commission in the army. Women make up a minuscule percentage. It's less than 0.56% of India's 1.4 million army personnel. Their representation is better in the Air Force, which is about 1%, and the Navy, which is much, much better, 6.5%. So Tanushree Podder, who I'm talking to today, has a new book out. It's an amazing book. It's The Girls in Green. It gives us an inside look into what goes on into the making of an army officer. It is a fantastic story that depicts friendship, courage, patriotic sentiment, the love of the country, and the pride of wearing the uniform. The Girls in Green is a story not only about soaring ambition and punishing military regimens, but also about the gratifying rewards and the joys of friendship. With that, welcome, Tanu. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Sukirti. It is lovely to be with you, and I'm looking forward to this chat.
Your book could not be more timely because this is really what all the talk is about women and women joining the armed forces and how to increase the percentages. How does that make you feel that your book is, maybe I would say, inspirational or helping us achieve that goal?
I think, Sukirti, it is just a question of being somewhere at the right time. So is the right place, right time for me. And I'm so, glad that it is getting so much attention and love, because I guess it's very timely.
So tell us what inspired you, and I think somebody specifically inspired you to write this book.
I'm a forces wife. My husband was in the army. He's retired now. And so the inspiration is my family. In fact, this is the fourth military book, and the first one was done as a lark, Boots, Bells, Berets, which was a kind of a compilation of things that happened during his course. And it was supposed to be a gift for him, a surprise gift. And then thereafter, there was no looking back. People wanted more and more and more and more, because these books are different. They have, they are done with a lot of humor while bringing out the other factors.
As you said,
the inspiration was from the women themselves, because I got asked many times whenever I traveled anywhere and we stayed in the officers' mess, I would meet young women who were working as the officers, and they would ask me, why haven't you written anything on us? I think we deserve to be there. So it was just time that I did something about it.
So this is your fourth book. It's no doubt that you find the forces interesting. Tell us what makes it so interesting.
I think it's interesting for the simple matter that women are finding their place in army. They are doing so well. In fact, they are doing very, very well, I would say. And they're getting the attention they really deserve.
That's awesome, because it's so true. Because what I always want to ask people is, how realistic is the book, and how do you do your research? Like, how do you really get into that, yes, to put it in that very realistic, and this is what we can expect?
You cannot, do such writing at home. So I had to visit the institution, the academy, and get a first-hand feel of the place. I met the instructors, I met the cadets, I met a whole lot of people there. I went through the campus twice. In fact, I traveled to Chennai twice to just, get very familiar with the entire setup. And I also had meals at their cafeteria, which plays a big role in the book. So it was like, listening to them and the energy around you. That sort of, makes it so real. And a lot of people have complimented me saying, how did you get it so right? Because the first episode was with a lady officer, and she was in conversation. And she said, I'm really, really surprised that you got exact beat of the place and everything. So I think that I take it as the biggest compliment for the book.
I know, because as soon as you start the book, I think something that just really hit me was lady officer and gentleman officer. Just from that, isn't that demarcation? Doesn't that just start being limiting, and the way that we're still being very gender sensitive? Let's talk about the army being conservative and very, very male dominated.
See, just not in India. I think globally, soldiers have been a little conservative. If you look back, historically, there were no women. Though there were a few women who fought on individual basis, but there were no militaries around the world who took in women soldiers. So in India, of course, we started a little later than many of the other countries. But what happens is, it is a traditional kind of a setup. It is a very conservative, and army still has a lot of rules that, go back to the British time when the Indian army was formulated. And otherwise also in the society, we have a very, very conservative view of everything. So it takes a lot to break out of that, kind of a mindset. And army being army, it is a little more, conservative, because there are so many issues, some real, some imagined, but there were a lot of issues which are getting ironed out. And I think here I would like to mention that I interviewed the first lot of women pilots in the Indian Air Force at Bangalore. And I did an article on them. I spent a day talking to them, and this thing, Harita Deol and all were there. That was the first batch. And I did one article on them in Savvy, which is a Magna publication. So from that time, I know what exactly the kind of teething problems they have gone through and how much it took to come to this stage.
Now let's come, like you say in your epilogue, the acceptance of women officers is going to be difficult to come by. What do you feel that it will take to fully accept women?
I think only time will do the job, because see, it's not like any other job. They have to go to remote places. They have to interact with soldiers who belong to the rural milieu. And you can imagine most of our soldiers come from, very agricultural sectors in UP, Haryana, everywhere around, Bihar. And even now, we know these states do not have so much, they don't give that kind of weightage to the women in whatever field. It's not just about, army, it's the society as a whole. So within the parameters of the society, the army also has to operate keeping in mind a lot of factors. It's not very easy, I think, for a rural man to accept women as, their bosses. They are not so enlightened.
Yeah, this is the question comes, men accepting commands from a woman. And the theory is, and this is what's really holding them back, that men will not accept commands from a woman. And that seems to be the big mindset that we need to change out there. That because we're seeing women leaders emerge in almost all other sectors. So why in the army that we find that this is so much more difficult?
Having said that, Sukirti, I think there is a lot going up, and things are changing. There are several women officers who have been commanding, especially in the medical corps.
Yes.
If you see, we have generals, and they have been around for a long time, and we see change coming in, but it takes time to change anything in the world. It's not just in India, but all over. I think change comes very gradually, but it is coming. And I'm very hopeful in the next 10 days, we will see a big, big change.
No, and I'm hoping that your book will also make that change, because as women
Yes,
read
of
it,
course.
because
Yes.
one of the big things is, okay, we talk a lot about society and others, but how do we also change the mindset of women themselves? Because that is also not one of the first careers that comes to their minds in saying, okay, let me choose the armed forces as a career for myself.
You'll be surprised that there are a lot of girls who have been, getting in touch with me on the social media, and they have been reaching out and saying they have read Boots, Bells, Berets, and they have been inspired, and they want to join the army, and they're so happy that this book is out here, to cheer them and inspire them further.
Yeah, and I think your book goes beyond that because it also challenges gender stereotypes and the stereotypes of who we typically think joined the army. Let's talk about the four girls that are in your book because they're very, very different from each other.
The four girls, as you know, come from four different backgrounds, four different states. And it was a conscious effort. I made that effort to, bring in the Northeast, because they are really never mentioned and they're not spoken about. And yet I have been, I graduated from Lady King College, Shillong, where I have, seen Khasi girls, and, they're very, very advanced. I think they are far, far advanced than the ones in the hinterlands and the north of our country. These are girls who actually, I mean, their mothers, not now. I think for the last so many generations, they have been running stalls in the vegetable markets, and the men have taken secondary role. In fact, the property passes on to the girl in the family. So this is a society which is really, really evolved as far as feminism is concerned. And yet we don't talk about it because they don't have exposure. So it was a very conscious decision for me to make, that one of my characters has to come from there. And the second, of course, Bijli. She is like a real fiery person back from the, rural background. And she's swift as a lightning. And she really, really has set her goals high. And then there is a girl from Kerala who actually gets into, because her fiance is there.
Yes.
And they have been competing since the time they were in the nursery. So, she's there for a different reason. Everyone is there for a different reason. And Nutan, of course, Nati, who's the most favorite character, as I have been getting in, various feedbacks, that they love Nati's character because she's so normal, down to earth, kind of a girl who has dreams, a lot of dreams. She joins because she is enamored by the glamour, and then she, realizes what it's really about.
Let's talk about Nutan a little bit because there is some body shaming there. And that was the taunts making us feel very uncomfortable, a lot of the ragging, as we would call it. So in the army, this question of ragging also to make you fit into or toughen you up. Let's talk about that.
See, I won't call it body shaming, Sukirti. We have all grown up with schoolmates and classmates in the family. We call them moti. Very lovingly, we call them moti. It's never called body shaming. It's a recent kind of a development which has come from the West, I think. We have never been, that kind of a society where these things were not taken in the right spirit. There is a lot of fun, and there is a lot of, closeness in those terms. So I do not know where this is coming from, because it's never meant as a, deriding someone. Those are meant to, they show the closeness between the girls. And we in real life have gone through it. I have had friends. In the family, we have had cousins and all that, and it was always so cheerfully done. So I just don't subscribe to that viewpoint about body shaming, because it is not body shaming. And in her case, they just tease her. It is not to do something serious, ragging or something.
But army life, I mean, especially when you see it, it's just really about discipline. And what can we all take away from that? Because, when we read it, we see that they're so structured and everything is so well laid out. And the change that you see in the girls, let's talk about that, because it also makes them feel very powerful and very comfortable.
Absolutely. It empowers them. They're very adaptable. They can fit in anywhere. They can, be happy anywhere. They can live in a big, I have lived in bashas, which are, kacha houses. So we can adapt to every cuisine, every habitat, every kind of environment, climate, people. I think the armed forces create citizens who are the citizens of the country, not given to a region, caste and creed. That doesn't happen there. caste, creed, religion doesn't come into the picture. The very fact is that we are creating a huge new generation of, very broad-minded people who have such a tremendous, effect on the others around them. So I think to that extent, I really support the defense services because of the way people are.
I agree, because there's something about seeing a woman in uniform. It definitely makes her look powerful, but the fact is they also feel powerful. But
Yes.
really, the question of women and power, I think that's something that you also raise in the book. So, yet we are still struggling to get that power balance.
I think already I have met such smart girls, and they're so confident. In fact, one of the girls, who's now, of course, a commissioned officer, she took me around the place. And the way she was, so confident, and the soldiers saluting her, and, she giving out orders and all that. There was just no, there was just no feeling that she's a woman. It was like they would take orders from a man, a male officer. So that kind of, effect has come over in the last few decades, I think. So that's where the change is. And these girls, most of the defense girls and boys are performing so well in the international arena. And it's all because of the training they get. It's a discipline, as you mentioned, because discipline amounts to success. If you're not disciplined, you really cannot be that successful.
So well said. I really love that line, that discipline really amounts to success, and you can see it. I mean, I think that's one of the things that throughout the book, at least you feel that, it is really a lot of hard work. It's not easy, and I think when you think about it, but you see that how they're also able to overcome their own limitations. So I think that really makes you feel a lot of pride in it.
Absolutely.
Now, my question, because of course, a lot of authors, whenever they start to write a book on strong women or women breaking barriers, they get very much typecasted as feminist authors. So, are you a feminist author?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm a feminist author because I write on all subjects, and I write with equal kind of attention to each one. But as a person, I'm quite a feminist. Yes. I am I come from a line of very strong women. My grandmother was a freedom fighter in those days, during the British times. My aunt, my mother were freedom fighters. So we come from a family where we have seen, very strong women. So I think that has imbued even my children. I have two daughters. They're very, very strong women. So
Oh,
to
that's
that extent, yes,
fantastic.
I'm a feminist.
Now, your book is being made into a web series. That's so exciting. We want to, of course, learn more. And who do you envision as playing your characters?
I really don't know. Because there's not much femininity, if you see, with those crop cuts and, sort of unisexual kind of personality that they have to, you know, they become eventually because of the hard training, the tanning, and everything. In fact, if you go to the academy from a distance, you won't know if it is a man or a woman. So I don't think I can visualize any of our stars. So I'm hoping they'll cast something really gutsy and, someone who really wants to go the extra mile to look the part.
And I know we're very excited because, of course, always people are waiting after this book. What's going to be your next one?
Yeah, what's the next one? I don't know, because as you know, I write in so many genres that it's very difficult, and I do take a little bit of break. Like if I've done a military book, then next I will be doing something else, and then come back to the military one later, maybe. So maybe another one. And since you feel that this encourages women, maybe something on women again.
No, I definitely, I mean, at least my takeaway was it was very inspiring. It made me think a lot because it also made me think about, okay, you know what, the statistics are so dismal that we actually need books like this to make us also think about the career. I myself, my first job was in the Navy. So it was in the
Oh,
civilian Navy. So maybe that's why it
oh,
maybe
how
also
nice.
even more
And
resonated with me.
Miss, I'm so happy that I never expected that.
Yeah, not in the India. I was in the US, so it was with the US. I was in the
Yeah,
Navy
wherever,
Intelligence
but you
System.
have imbibed that culture, and
Yeah,
that's what matters. And one thing I want to point out here is that the ratio that you have mentioned in between the men and women in army versus air force and navy, it's also because those are smaller setups. Indian army is like humongous. So
yes.
if you take the proportion, it would be a little less compared to, the other two forces.
But what I like to say is, I think books like this really inspire us. They make us really think that it is possible for all of us to do this. So thank you for writing this. Any closing thoughts as we end for today?
Uh, I would love people to come forward and give their views, but I would love women to come forward and join the army. That would be like, the biggest reward that I can expect from this book, to be able to inspire more women. And let me assure you, it's a great, great career, which has no parallels.
Well, thank you, Tanu. That was excellent. Great to have.
Thank you so much, Sukirti, for having me. I really enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.